Mothership's taking flash. I've got your wing covered. Hit too close for missiles, Broncos. Laser, target locked. Fire one ready.
Holy moly, buzzers! With Batman the Ride roaring overhead, this week's Sci-Fi Buzz is in the Gotham City backlot. It's a Hollywood kind of show this week. Not only are we in Gotham City, but we sneak preview The Mask and Forrest Gump for you. Plus, we'll buzz with the Shadow, Alec Baldwin, Harlan Ellison's commentary, and some very serious Hollywood prop and costume collectors.
Cylon Centurions from Battlestar Galactica. That's my, the holy grail. It took me 10 years to track him down. Finally got him.
Hello, buzzers. Mike Jarek here. You know, the first two Batman movies presented a rather dark picture of a once beautiful and elegant city, and that idea has kind of been carried over in this part of Six Flags Magic Mountain theme park in Southern California. But one thing still nice and shiny is the Batmobile. Of course, Batman used to cruise around in this Batmobile. That's why they called him the Caped Crusader. Hell, you know, the next Batman movie isn't scheduled to go into production until the fall, but there are two incredible special effects movies coming out this summer, and we're going to give you a buzz preview right now. We talked to the makers of The Mask and Forrest Gump.
You're under arrest.
No, it wasn't me. It was the one-armed man.
There are two movies set to hit theaters in July that on the surface appear to have very little in common. Forrest Gump follows a simple-minded sort as he stumbles by fate upon some interesting moments in recent U.S. history. And The Mask is a slapstick comic book fable about a hapless bank clerk whose luck changes when he discovers an ancient mask.
Spoken!
But both films are crammed with groundbreaking special effects created by Industrial Light and Magic that enhance their stories in remarkable ways.
So far, I've only seen effects at this level used in science fiction and horror. And I wanted to finally, now that we finally have the ability to make a living actor literally a human cartoon and do cartoon physics, and I knew I wanted to make a picture with Jim Carrey, who was the perfect guy to do that with. I wanted to take those two elements and run with it.
The look of The Mask was top priority for director Chuck Russell, so he asked the effects wizards behind Jurassic Park to devise the outrageous opticals he envisioned for the film.
This shot took about 4 weeks or in order to complete.
The Mask had a modest $20 million budget, and over a third of that was spent on computer-generated animation. But thanks to star Jim Carrey's astounding physical abilities, $1 million was peeled off the special effects budget.
In our case, we had a terrific opportunity because we really used the best special effects house in the world, which is Industrial Light and Magic, and spent all our money really for the eye candy with them.
As a far-fetched comic fantasy, The Mask utilizes effects to magnify its zaniness. But Forrest Gump presented the busy folks at ILM with an entirely different challenge: realism.
Life is a box of chocolates, Forrest. You never know what you're going to get.
So they developed a state-of-the-art technique that uses computer graphics and digital imagery. The end result allows the lead character, played by Tom Hanks, to mingle with popular figures from the latter part of the 20th century.
What we did in the case of the JFK thing is we took Kennedy and extracted him out of his film, and then we recreated the Oval Office and put other people, because we wanted it to be our background, and then we shot Tom separately against the blue screen, and then took all three of those pieces and put them in the computer and married them together there.
Now, it used to be, I ran to get where I was going. I never thought it would take me anywhere.
Most of Gump's historical effects are being kept under wraps until the film opens. But with Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future, and Death Becomes Her under his belt, director Bob Zemeckis has proven himself as a master of illusion. And he let us in on the real secret to celluloid success.
I think one of the things you have to do is keep everybody aware of what we're doing, and it's not just, because when you do a special effects shot, it seems like the whole attitude of the set changes, and it's all about these technicians and their equipment, and here's this poor actor standing out there who, you know, you keep reminding that, yes, we will get to you, you know.
When we reconnect, Harlan Ellison checks in and some collectors that know Hollywood's dumpsters really well. I'm at the Joker Juice Bar. Oh yes, the Batman theme continues even in the snack bars here. Oh yeah, you see the architect was a real sci-fi fanatic, like the two guys you're about to meet. Self-proclaimed sci-fi nuts, James Latta and Roger Sides weren't content to sit around and wait for the next big film or TV series to materialize. So in order to exist in a constant state of sci-fi bliss, they've surrounded themselves with the ultimate memorabilia. Hundreds of props and costumes from some of the all-time genre classics.
We're looking at some of the original wardrobe from Star Trek, from the TV series from the 1960s, and some of the pieces that we have here, the majority of them were acquired from Bill Tice's estate, who was the original costumer on the original series. And these were pieces that he held on to for 26 years that were in his basement, and you can see some of the example of some of his workmanship.
Appropriately enough, we caught up with the guys at the Grand Slam Star Trek convention earlier this year, where their impressive collection was on display. Unfortunately, without a permanent place to exhibit their wares, it's stuck in storage most of the year.
You know, we're hoping that someday that there will be a museum. Hollywood hasn't been able to support one yet. There's a $53 million Gene Autry museum for cowboy pictures, but, you know, it's ironic because in the top 10 grossing motion pictures, the top 10 grossing motion pictures of all time were not Westerns.
There are countless fans whose ears perk up at the mere mention of Star Wars or Star Trek, but few have actually gotten their hands on memorabilia worth its weight in sci-fi gold. And behind every item, there's a tale to be told.
The Thing costume, which we just found, which was James Arness's costume from The Thing, that I identified it was lost for 42 years and was misidentified also for 42 years, and it could have been shredded at any point.
Latta shelled out 7,000 buckaroos for the Thing costume. But that's a steal when you consider the 20,000 big ones he spent on a Darth Vader helmet. Until he tells us someone's already offered him $50,000 for it. And it's not for sale.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Bob, a response?
They're not worthy.
Not surprisingly, Latta and Sides look to Bob Burns, Hollywood's prop collecting king, as their mentor.
Hands down, the most significant human being in science fiction and fantasy as far as preservation and horror. He carries the torch for the entire special effects industry as an inspiration to everyone that works in the film industry.
Can I pay you later? Is that okay?
Some of the wisdom passed down from Burns no doubt involves trade secrets on how to hunt down these hidden gems.
There's a lot of detective work involved. It's a lot of calling people as far as I find things in Japan that were bought at a swap meet in Pasadena.
Those with a firm grip on the art and science of collecting know you can be as cunning as Dick Tracy and still come up empty-handed. Those who truly excel at the game are blessed with three vital virtues: patience, patience, and patience.
Cylon Centurions from Battlestar Galactica. That's the holy grail. It took me 10 years to track him down. Finally got him.
It could be some time before the dream of a permanent home becomes a reality for Latta and Sides. Nevertheless, their ever-growing collection can be ogled up close at sci-fi and fantasy conventions in Southern California throughout the year. I've got some great items for your Batman collection here. Look at this. This is the Batman Crime Fighter Survival Kit. You've got Batman candy right here. Ooh, don't you think those are good? Look at him, he's surfing there on something. Backpack, wallet. Ooh, a swizzle stick for my little Batman cup. Can you imagine Michelle Pfeiffer sliding down your swizzle stick? Whoa! And how about Batman golf balls? Of course, this nifty mask. Oh my gosh, I had that on. By the way, the dean of prop collecting in Hollywood, Bob Burns, is going to start a little series here on Sci-Fi Buzz. It's going to be pretty cool. We're going to go down in his basement and kind of rummage around, see all the stuff he has collected over the years. And we're going to call it Bob's Basement. July 17th, right here on Sci-Fi Buzz.
Yo, take a look at this. You may never see something like this again. This is the Lifetime Achievement Award of the Science Fiction Writers of America. That's the professional organization of science fiction writers. SFWA was founded in 1965. It was founded by Damon Knight, the motivating influence, and its first vice president, that's me. You're looking at him. I resigned in 1977 from SFWA because I couldn't stand any more amateur arguments about what color the club tie should be. They began giving out the nebulas in 1965, But a few years later, they started giving out the Lifetime Achievement Award. This Lifetime Achievement Award is the one that belonged to Alfred Bester. It's been entrusted to me, and I'll keep it till there's an Alfred Bester museum or something. The problem with it, giving it to Alfie, was, though he was a great, great writer, Demolished Man, The Star's My Destination, Alfie never lived to get it in his hands. They gave it to him on his deathbed. It was pushed through at the very last moment when he was just clinging to life. And that's what's happened too often to too many great writers in this field. Because there was a rule, a bylaw, a strange, weird rule that somebody put together and said you could only give out 6 Lifetime Achievement Awards every decade. 6 every decade. Why this rule came up, I don't know. I suppose somebody thought it would make the award seem much more valuable, much more mystical. After somebody's been writing for 30, 40, 50 years, it's going to make it more valuable. How about this man? How about Paul Anderson? Here's a man who's been writing since the late 40s, for God's sakes. Here's a man who has written 127 books, Paul Anderson. Paul Anderson is 68 years old. That's a fine piece of age, 68 years old. How about this? Bob Sheckley. Bob Sheckley, one of the most influential writers of the 50s and 60s, a great humorist, a terrific writer. He's a punk. He's only 66 years old. And what about Kate Wilhelm? She's also a punk, 66 years old. Kate Wilhelm, 3 dozen books, each one more brilliant than the last one. Kate Wilhelm, by the way, only one of the 12 people who's ever gotten a Lifetime Achievement Award was a woman. And now we come to the grand old master himself, A.E. Van Vogt, Alfred E. Van Vogt. In 1930s, in the 1940s, if there had been a Lifetime Achievement Award, A.E. Van Vogt would have gotten it before Asimov. He'd have gotten it before Clark. He'd have gotten it before Bradbury. A.E. Van Vogt was one of the most influential and important writers that we had. He wrote Slan. Slan remains today the best book about mutants you've ever read. This kid, Jommy Cross, trying to run away from the purges. And the world of Null A. Van Vogt brought non-Aristotelian thinking into the genre. He used general semantics as an idea for a novel. The Voyage of the Space Beagle. A.E. Van Vogt was a writer whose work was seminal. He went away in the 50s. He got involved with Dianetics, and he wasn't around for 20 years, and he came back, and he was badly agented, and nobody seems to remember him now. And because he was away and because he was involved with Dianetics for a while, it seems as if no one wants to give him this award. Well, I'm here to tell you, folks, that I've been trying for 2 years to get SFWA to give A.E. Van Vogt the award. And they say, well, Van should get it. Yes, of course, but Paul Anderson hasn't gotten it. Kate Wilhelm hasn't gotten it. Ursula Le Guin hasn't gotten it. What about Bob Sheckley? Yeah, I agree. Paul, Bob, Kate, they ought to have it. Ursula, she's in young, fine fettle. So Silverberg, so are any number of other good writers. This rule, which I understand is no longer even in the bylaws, is something that has hung SFWA up, and it prevents them from doing the decent, humane thing. It's not just that A.E. Van Vogt is very old and very sick and may not be with us for an awful long time. It is that it is his due. He did the work. These people are of an advanced age. If you're going to say to them, we appreciate what you did, if you're going to say we think that you are masters, now is the time to do it. You don't have 2, 3, 5 years to have a popularity contest. Let's give it to Paul this year. Let's give it to Kate next year. Let's give it to Van 4 years down the line. There isn't any time left. There's no time left to do this. I talk to you now, and I'm not making any friends for myself. In fact, I probably have lost for myself the friendship of the outgoing president of SFWA, Joe Haldeman, because I brought this up in a recent banquet and business meeting of SFWA up in Oregon. This was raised, and they couldn't talk about the rightness of doing it, of giving out these awards, of getting rid of the rule, or bending the rule, or putting the rule in abeyance, which you can do. Any rules that people make can be put aside. They're just words. No, they didn't want to talk about that. They wanted to talk about how I was blackmailing them. They wanted to talk about how I was coercing them. And I was warned, I was threatened. They told me, don't go on television with this. You'll only do more harm than good. How much harm more can I do? The awards are not being given. No one's talking about it. Nothing's being done. I'm not asking anybody to put any pressure on SFWA. I'm asking SFWA itself to have a heart. To have a heart and do the right thing. These are awards that are due. No one will argue with that. All that stands in the way are words. Change the words.
Who knows what it's like to be with Kim Basinger? The Shadow does. Alec Baldwin is next.
Philadelphia. I'd like to recommend the graphic novel by J.O. Barr called The Crow. If you like the movie, you'll probably like the graphic novel even better. It's more mature, it's less Hollywood, and a very pure, very intense story.
Show yourself, fella. Who said that?
You committed murder, Duke. Now you're going to confess to it.
It's only a matter of days until Hollywood brings another classic superhero to the big screen. With his role as the Shadow, Alec Baldwin could find himself at the center of a lucrative and long-lasting movie franchise. In an official studio-sanctioned interview, Baldwin spelled out what he found most intriguing about the dark and brooding crime fighter.
Join me. You are Yinko, the Butcher of Lhasa.
That line, when you take that line, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows, and that, because he really does know. He's not some Boy Scout who decided to put on some costume and go out and fight crime. Not that there's anything against those people that did that. But he's been there. He's done some pretty terrible things, and he's lived a pretty, in the past, he lived a pretty wicked and self-serving kind of a life.
Now, that comment got us wondering about Baldwin, so we tracked him down ourselves. We wanted to find out how much of a Boy Scout he is, or if he's ever dallied on the dark side.
Well, when I put these rings on my finger, I turned my back on the forces of evil, yes.
So there were forces of evil before the ring?
Well, I was, how can I say? I lived life. I lived life to the fullest. What's the matter, cops and robbers business slowing down?
Could it be nowadays Baldwin has more in common with the Shadow's alter ego, billionaire playboy Lamont Cranston?
The thing I liked about Cranston that was fun for me to play is something that I'm not at all like, which is that he's very carefree. I mean, here he is, this millionaire playboy who's got the world on a string. I think when he becomes the Shadow, he becomes very intense about his work. But the thing I loved about Cranston was, unlike other superhero characters who are all very burdened by the task of being a superhero, Cranston is jumping in and out of limos and popping champagne bottles and dancing in nightclubs and having a good time.
You're finished, Con.
Alec Baldwin may not have much in common with the Shadow or Lamont Cranston, but that never dimmed his enthusiasm for the role. Baldwin says there were no limits to how far over the top he was willing to leap to portray the Phantom-like crime fighter.
You have to take it as far as you can go. So I don't think that the Shadow, I don't think that he can be nasty enough to the bad guys. As a matter of fact, if we do it again, if we do another movie, he's going to be even nastier to the bad guys.
A convention for those who amuse for a living. Next.
If you think parks like Six Flags Magic Mountain are just fun and games, let me tell you this. These parks are a very important part of a company's business. For instance, this is just one of 7 Six Flags owned by Time Warner. Now, every year, theme park executives get together for a big convention called the IAAPA Convention. It's such a big deal. And we snuck in.
The IAAPA may sound like a labor union, but we found they run a fun convention. You see, IAAPA stands for International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. Over 20,000 people came to Los Angeles recently to play at their annual convention.
The theme park industry is just like the car industry. You got to keep changing your models every year. If you don't, people are going to quit buying them.
The old carnival favorites were here, looking as fun and familiar as ever, but we didn't need to look far to find slick, updated versions of the tried and true as well.
Today, every pinball that comes out has got some new mechanical wizardry. Tales from the Crypt has some really far-out ramps on it, and it's got that campy gore, that fun horror, if you would. So, yeah, it's got a lot of good ingredients for pinball.
While everyone loves carousels and arcade games, we discovered a new era in entertainment is upon us.
Well, you've got virtual reality, the motion simulators, the high technologies, definitely a major influence in the theme parks right now in the family amusement centers.
The thousands of attendees lined up to sneak a peek at cutting-edge attractions being offered by interactive entertainment experts. iWork's $1.8 million extravaganza called Virtual Adventures generated a lot of excitement, and with good reason. The ambitious company has devised a ride, a game, and a movie. 3 great sources of amusement all rolled up into one attraction. Omni Films International previewed a new motion simulator that gives you the rockin' sensation of actually being in a movie.
The simulators are based on flight technology, simulation technology. And they are based on a 6 degree of freedom platform, meaning that they can simulate a body moving in any direction.
Yet another leader in the booming interactive business is ShowScan Corporation. They're fast gaining a reputation for the quality visual images of their simulated attractions.
We are actually recording and projecting images the way you see the world around you. So by creating a visual image that is so real as to trick you subconsciously into believing what you're seeing is real, we can create an experience that's much more interactive, much more visceral. It's virtually reality.
Though roller coasters aren't obsolete just yet, it looks like future amusement parks and attractions will provide thrills, chills, and excitement while our feet never leave the ground.
All right, that's enough show for this time. I want to ride this ride, huh? Come on, you can have a seat right next to me. Hey, guys, can I get around you here? Oh, come on! I'll see you next week. Come on, just let me get through this. Yeah, weenies.
A profile of astronaut Alan Shepard, Snapple in space, and more on the next Inside Space tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. Now, stay tuned for Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion. Next.